I'm going to talk about addition with respect to decimals. Okay, let me start with an example. Suppose you wanted to add the decimals 1.23 and 3.14 together. Okay, so this procedure will get you the correct answer. Let's add the numbers in each column. So the 3 and the 4 are in the same column, so let me add those together and get a 7. The 2 and the 1 below it are in the same column, so let's add those together and get a 3. And then the next column has a decimal point above and below, so we'll put a decimal point in our answer. And then the last column, the leftmost column, has a 1 and a 3, so we'll add those and get a 4. Okay, that is the correct decimal. That's equal to the sum of the original two decimals. Let me show you why this is the correct decimal. Okay, so we started with 1.23 and 3.14. Now, convince yourself that 1.23 is equal to 1 plus 2/10 plus 3/100. And also convince yourself that 3.14 is equal to 1 plus 1/10 plus 4/100. Okay, now having expressed each decimal in terms of those sums, now can you see that we can add the 3 and the 1? We can add the 2/10 and the 1/10, all right, because the denominators are the same. And we can add the 3/100 and the 4/100. Okay, so that's what's going on. That's what justifies adding them by lining up the numbers in columns like I did initially in that first example. Okay? So if you understood what I did, I would like you to try to add decimals that way now. Okay, pause the video and try to add those two decimals and find out what decimal you get. Okay, do that now. Okay, I'll go ahead and do it as well. So the 5 and the 2 are in a column together, so I'm going to put a 7 in my answer. And then the next column to the left, I see a 3 and a 6, so I'm going to put a 9 in my answer. The next column, I see the decimal point, so I'm going to put a decimal point next, and then the 4 and the 5, so I'm going to put a 9. So 9.97 is the answer that you should have gotten. Okay? Let's try another one. 3.125 plus 4.814. Okay, so pause the video and try to do that example now. All right, I'll go ahead and work it out as well. So 5 and 4 gives a 9, 2 and 1 gives a 3, 1 and 8 gives a 9. The decimal points come next, so I'll put 1. 3 and 4 gives a 7. I hope that's the answer you got. Now, there are a few challenges you might run into along the way. Let me talk about one of those. What if you had to add 1.2 to 6.04? So I would suggest always lining up the numbers into columns so that the decimal points are in the same column, right? And this one might cause a little confusion because there's no number in the column with the 4, is there? All right? but that's easily fixed. You can simply add a 0. You could to the 1.2 decimal on the right. All right. In fact, you can always add zeros to the right of any decimal, and it won't change any answer. All right. That's a good thing to remember. So now we can add the 0 and 4 to get a 4, the 2 and 0 to get a 2, then decimal point and the 1 and the 6, and we get a 7.24. Okay? Now I'd like you to try to do such a addition problem. 7.5 plus 12.23. So pause the video now and try to do that one after I draw my line. Okay, so now try to do that one. Okay, so I'll go ahead and show you how I would do it. So I would put a 0 to the right of the 7.5, and now I get 19.73. All right. Let me show you another thing that might come up when you're adding decimals. Okay. Suppose you had to add 7.7 and 8.4. So the rightmost column has a 7 and a 4, right? When you add those together, you get an 11. An 11 has 2 digits in it. So how do we handle that? Okay, what I'm going to do, let me go ahead and show you what to do, and then I'll explain why that's correct. So 7 plus 4 gives 11. I'm going to put the 1, the rightmost digit, I'm going to write that first, and then the leftmost digit, I'm going to add it to the column to the left. So now I have 3 numbers in the leftmost column, a 1, a 7, and an 8. That gives 16 when I add those 3 numbers together. Now I have the same problem. I'm going to put the leftmost number, the 6, and then I'm going to put the 1 in the next column to the left. Okay? The same way that I can add zeros to the right of a decimal, okay, I can add zeros to the left of a decimal. So I can put a 0 to the left of the 8. Now I have a column with a 1 and a 0. All right? So the sum of these decimals is 16.1. All right? Now let me show you, let me help you understand why that is correct. So 7.7 is equal to 7 plus 7/10. 8.4 is equal to 8 plus 4/10. Okay? Now let's add the sums together on the right side of both equations. So the 7 and the 8, those sum to 15. The 7/10 and 4/10, those sum to 11/10. Okay? Now 15 plus 11/10 is the same as 15 plus 1 plus 1/10, which gives 16 and 1/10, or 16.1. So did you see how the 7/10 plus 4/10 summed to an improper fraction, the 11 over 10? And that was able to be converted to an integer plus a proper fraction. So that is a way to see why I can do what's called carrying digits to columns to the left. All right? Now I'd like you to try an example with what I just called carrying. All right, carrying digits to the column to the left. So try to do this example. Okay, so pause the video now and give that a shot. Okay, I'll show you how how I would do it. So the 6 and the 9, those add to 15. So I'm going to put the rightmost digit down, and then I'm going to put the leftmost digit in the column to the left. Now I have a 1, a 0, and a 0. I'm going to add those and get a 1. Next comes the decimal point, and then the 3 and the 5 give an 8, so 8.15. Okay? Let's try another one. 1.013 plus 2.128. All right? Pause the video and try to add those decimals together. All right? So I'll go ahead and show you how I would do it. So the 3 and the 8 add to an 11, so I'm going to put the rightmost digit down, and the leftmost digit I'm going to put it in the next column to the left. So now 1, 1, and 2, those add to 4. 0 and 1 adds to 1. Then the decimal point, 1 and 2, that adds to 3. 3.141. I hope that's what you got. All right, so I've shown you two problems that can come up when you're adding decimals. They might not have the same number of digits, okay, but we solve that by adding zeros. And we might have to carry to the column to the left, right? And I showed you how to do that, all right? So, and if you have more than 2 decimals, you can either add them 2 at a time, or even put them all and have columns with lots of numbers and still add all the columns together. So let me show you an example that has all of the issues we've talked about. Okay, so this is the last example we'll do. So pause the video and try to add these 3 decimals together. Okay, so I'll go ahead and show you how I would do it. So remember, we're allowed to add as many zeros as we like. Okay, that takes care of that possible point of confusion. Now I start adding columns. So 0, 2, and 0 gives a 2. 0, 5, and 8, that adds up to 13. So I'm going to put the 3 here and put a 1 in the column to the left. 1 plus 6 plus 3 plus 4, that adds up to 14. So I'm going to put a 4 and put a 1 in the column to the left. Next comes the decimal point. Now I have a 1, 2, 8, and 2. Those 4 numbers add up to 13. So I'm going to put a 3 and put a 1 in the column to the left. 1, 1, and 2, that adds up to 4. So I get 43.432 for the sum. All right, if you understand this example, and if you know how to do this example and get the same answer, you're probably pretty far along in understanding what you need to understand to add decimals together. All right?